Hi everybody, it's Taylor with the Daily Again, and let's get into it. What I want to talk about in this video is how Congress actually gets things done, and that is through the work of committees. There are many different committees, and there's different ones for the House and the Senate, but in this video I want to focus on just the House. They're pretty much parallel between the House and the Senate in the way that they function and how chairpersons are elected and those types of things. So if we just focus on one group, we'll understand what happens in the other group. There are three different types of committees: standing, joint, and select. Standing committees are committees that will handle the most of the work. Pretty much all of the bills that get introduced get sent to standing committees, and they're very broad and general topics like agriculture or science and technology or things like that. Now, joint committees are committees that are made up of both senators and representatives, and what these committees do is they come together and they decide on issues between the House and the Senate. Now, select committees are special committees that are built for a very specific purpose, and they're not necessarily going to last for an entire congressional term. There is another kind of committee called a subcommittee, which is a committee underneath a standing committee, and these subcommittees handle very specific issues within the standing committee. So the Standing Committee of Agriculture might have a subcommittee for corn or wheat. Now, obviously they don't, but it would handle all legislation and delegate it to those subcommittees for corn or wheat or whatever small issue that they decide that that very specific group can focus on.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill.
Without a doubt, most of us have probably seen that clip. And yes, it does an amazing job explaining how a bill moves through Congress, but it doesn't really explain the intricacies and some of the roles and the key players that have to make a bill happen. And specifically, I want to talk about chairpersons of committees as well as the Speaker of the House. Now, a lot of people know that the Speaker of the House and the Majority Senate Leader are the person that puts legislation in front of Congress. They decide the entire docket, no matter what, for what people are going to vote on. So they can just sit on things and kill bills. And a lot of frustration comes out of that when they just won't see something because they don't agree with it. That is an extremely frustrating thing to see. Going even deeper than that, into every committee, they also have a person like the Speaker of the House, like a chairperson is what they're called, and they usually align with the majority party in the House and the majority party in the Senate. Now, this chairperson does the same thing as the Speaker of the House. They decide on every bill that gets submitted or reported to the main chamber, potentially to get voted on. So there's even a gate before the Speaker of the House that you have to get through at this chairperson level. So that is why it is extremely important to pay attention to all of the representatives that are being voted into office, because these people can have huge implications and massive amounts of power to just sit on bills and kill things in their committee that they don't want to see happen. To put a little bit better of a perspective on it, I did a little bit of research myself, gathered a little bit of data, and did a tiny bit of analysis, and I found all 20 standing committees, which is what you see here in column C. All of these are the standing committees in the House. All of this is the data about bills that you see on congress.gov that got referred to each standing committee. So all of this in column D is all the legislation that got sent to that specific committee, or column F is typically the same thing because whatever referred to means sent to that specific committee. And then all of the stuff that was reported in column I shows how many things that committee reported back to the House floor to get voted on. And I just took a little bit of percentages and color coded them just so you could see. And what this is, legislation seen, means this is how many bills, or the percentage of bills that were introduced that were then sent to that committee for them to review and make comments on. Column M is legislation reported, so that's stuff sent back to the House to vote on. And then this committee report rate I just did for fun to see kind of how effective a committee is, or how well they're doing with the stuff that gets sent to them. How many times do they get in front of the floor for a vote? And you can see 73%. I mean, that is just astronomically high compared to anything else. So they almost did, 3/4 of the bills that were sent to them were sent back to the House for a vote. I would say that's a pretty good rate. So taking this a step further, we can look at where the 116th Congress actually spent most of their time. We can look by committee who reported the most bills of all the bills reported. That's what the orange bar is. So the Rules Committee reported 17% of all the bills that were reported back to the House. so that we can see that the House spent a lot of their time on rules. They also spent a lot of their time on natural resources, this orange bar, and energy and commerce, this orange bar. Very easily at a glance we can see where our Congress is spending their time. Now, I have to say it because this is probably not comprehensive, but this is what I found on Congress.gov's website about the data that was referred to, or the legislation data that was how many bills were referred to and reported to each standing committee. Now, this is not to say this is every bill, but it gives you at least a good indication of where the House of Representatives is at. Taking it a step further, even, you can look at by chairperson who had the most influence on Congress's time in the 116th Congress. You can say that James McGovern had 17% of the Congress's time because he ultimately decides how the Rules Committee is going to report back to the main chamber. Now, the more interesting thing, and probably the most interesting thing, is talking about by state. Not even by district, because you can go even further, but by state. Who has the most influence? And you can see, if you don't live in any one of these states, then you don't have a chairperson on a standing committee. You don't have a chairperson to report things to Congress for you. And this is why it's so vitally important to make sure that you are voting for the best candidate, for the right candidate, because these people have so much power. All of them, every representative has so much power to push things through Congress, or quite frankly, to sit on them and let them die in Congress and not get anything done at all. So we need to do our part, every single one of us, to go out, vote, and make sure that we're making the right decisions. With that said, I want to thank you for watching this video. I received so much support on the last video. I really appreciate it. Make sure that you share as much as possible. Follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. Drop me a comment, subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe to this channel, and it makes me feel super fantastic awesome. So thank you, and have a good one, guys.